Hey guys, Manic Mercury here, and in this video I would like to cover the astrology for the week of Tuesday, September 7th through Monday, September 13th. And before I do that, I just had a small side note. I just wanted to mention this because, as you know, I've been doing all the sun-moon combinations, of which there are 144. And I'm very content doing those. They've been popular. I enjoy doing them. I like having one video per day, a little bite-sized video for you guys. That's been a lot of fun. That's been a good time. The only problem with that is they are limited. There's 144, which sounds like a lot, but I'm doing them every day, and I'm approaching having done almost half of them. Not quite yet, but we're getting there. So I did the math, and at this rate that I'm going at, I should be out of material by early January. And where I'm getting at is I don't know what I'm going to cover after that. So I always ask for suggestions. I always ask for comments or emails at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But for real though, I don't know what I'm going to cover after these sun moon combinations. So if you have any if you want a chart reading done, or if you want to know astrological information, please don't hesitate to ask me, because I literally don't know what to cover after this somewhat long series I'm doing. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. But without further ado, let's get into the weekly forecast. So this isn't going to be the most crazy weekly forecast. I'm just going to be very transparent right now. There's only one exact planetary aspect this week, and it's actually between Mercury and CHIRON, which isn't even really a planet. So there's really not a lot of aspects this week, but don't worry. I do have some stuff to talk about, because even though there aren't a whole lot of aspects really going on, there are still some other things happening that are definitely noteworthy for sure. Two things in particular, which I'm about to talk about. Well, the first one happens to be on the first day that we're covering. So Tuesday, September 7th, we have Mercury is cruising right now. Mercury is traveling very quickly. It's already, in the middle third of Libra, I guess you could say. And it has passed 10 degrees Libra. And the reason why this is significant is because Mercury is going to retrograde at Mercury's going to retrograde at 25 degrees Libra on September 27th. I'm sorry, I had to look that up. But so that's, that's in a few weeks from now. But the reason why it's significant now on the 7th is because Mercury's entered pre-shadow. So what that means is, Mercury's not yet retrograding, but Mercury will retrograde in the near future. It will, let's just go forward to September 27th so I can kind of show you. So on September 27th, this number turns red. This is where Mercury is at, and the number turns red, indicating that it's going retrograde. As you can see by this time, all these outer planets are all retrograde. But as for the inner planets, Mercury is the only one kind of turning retrograde. So it will turn retrograde, meaning that it will appear to move backward, through these degrees of Libra, and then going, into the future, it will go backward, and it will eventually stop at 10 degrees Libra. It will eventually stop. I don't know which date. I didn't look that far ahead. We're doing weekly forecasts, not like monthly forecasts. So yeah, it looks like, mid-October, October 15th or so, Mercury will kind of slow down at 10 degrees. These things are gradual. There is a specific date where these things happen. Like in this case, it's October 19th that Mercury goes direct out of retrograde. So we're getting kind of into the future here, but that's just a date. It's not really indicative of what Mercury is actually doing. What Mercury is actually doing at that time is gradually slowing down, sort of stopping, and it's pretty much at a standstill for about a week. And then it gradually picks up speed and begins, on its course again going forward. Okay, so why am I talking about all this now, though, if it's in the future? Well, because Mercury's at that 10th degree or 11th degree already on September 7th. So let me simplify this. So Mercury has basically entered the area of Libra that it will soon retrograde over. It will go back over the area that it has just entered in the near future, if that makes sense. Hopefully I explained that well enough without having to like draw a diagram. But basically what this means, though, if we want to kind of interpret like the meaning of this, my interpretation is that Mercury again, rules the mind. It rules what we're thinking about. It rules kind of the daily rhythm of things. Mercury rules like errands and connections and I don't know, sort of our finances to some extent, like more like our transactions, our connections with people that we're trading information with, trading like goods or services. It's all about connections and trading and all that stuff. So all that type of stuff, all this kind of busyness of the day that we're experiencing is very busy right now because Mercury's going so quickly. But Mercury has entered this area of space that it will go back over in the near future. So what's happening right now is Mercury's going so fast that there's just too much happening right now that we can't integrate it all right now. So right now, starting on the 7th, there's going to be some stuff that you're not going to be able to fully integrate as it happens. And that's okay. So like, in other words, there's just so much kind of happening that, you do your best, but you're not paying attention to everything. And I don't think we're expected to. That's sort of the purpose of the retrograde. So once Mercury turns retrograde, it will go back over these same themes that we're about to experience. That way we can sort of actually understand what is happening now. Like in the future, we'll kind of go back over what's about to happen, if that makes sense. That way we can fully integrate it before we finally move on once Mercury goes direct again. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And because Mercury's in Libra, it'll be a little bit different for everyone depending on what, position Libra has within your chart. Like for instance, if you have a planet there, like let's say you have like the sun there, well then this is going to affect you very personally because your whole ego is kind of going over a makeover or like a redo. You're kind of refinishing or touching up on certain parts of your personality. But let's say, if Libra's like your midheaven, then this will apply to your career. It just kind of depends on the position in your chart. But as for everyone in general, what Libra represents to us all is our one-on-one relationships. So that's the area that we would expect to see, maybe there's a busyness there and we're not really picking up all the details. We're not really fully understanding everything or appreciating the weight of things, and again, it's not that we're, inadequate or anything like that. It's just that there's a lot going on right now. We're not meant to fully understand everything. We'll have that second chance once we go over the same area in the near future to reintegrate. And it's part of the whole process. Once you reintegrate, then you get a much fuller and richer understanding of these same themes than you would have if this whole transit did not occur at all. I'm rambling so much. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, so the point is on September 7th, Mercury enters that pre-shadow. So you'll feel a certain busyness and it can be exciting. There might just be new things happening. It can be exciting. It can also be a little bit stressful. There's just more stuff happening. Mercury is going so fast now. It's speeding ahead, way past the sun, relatively speaking. And so, it can be exciting and invigorating to experience this kind of quick pace. But at the same time, there are things that we're not integrating, which we'll go over later. Going forward to Wednesday, September 8th, this is our one and only planetary aspect, technically speaking, of the whole week. And that is Mercury opposite Chiron. So Mercury at 11 degrees. Again, Mercury's going so quickly, it's covering multiple degrees a day. So I know this isn't exact. You guys probably don't care, but I get neurotic about these things. But earlier in the day on September 8th, Mercury will be at 11 degrees Libra. So it will make that exact opposition with Chiron at 11 degrees Aries. Okay, so what does that mean? So again, Mercury is the mental pace of things, what we're thinking about, what we're communicating. It's making that sort of conversation. It's sort of an at odds type of conversation, but it is a connection with Chiron all the way over there in Aries. So Mercury is sort of opening itself up to Chiron's energies. That's what aspects really are, is planets sort of conversating or connecting. It's their energies kind of blending or clashing. And in this case, they're with an opposition, they're doing much of both. They're both blending as well as clashing. Mercury's in Libra, so Mercury is influencing us to think more diplomatically, to think about other people. We're very interested in other people, making connections, finding people who we can relate with or bounce ideas off of. But then this is opposing with Chiron in Aries, which is very much it's funny to even think about. It's sort of, Chiron in Aries is very sensitive. It's very it's sort of empowered, but it's empowered over wounds. So it's saying, these are my personal traumas, my wounds, and I'm standing strong in this, and I'm like fighting for this, and I'm very vocal about, these injustices that I've experienced or these traumas that I've experienced. And there's different pros and cons to that energy that I'm not even going to get into, but all that is opposing Chiron, or opposing Mercury, or vice versa. So what this translates to, Chiron is sort of an awkward energy, and Mercury is very easily influenced by other energies. And so starting on September 8th, well, really just on September 8th, since Mercury is traveling so quickly, we might be maybe a little bit easily riled up or more sensitive. We might be more empathetic toward others, we might, pick up on vibes or pick up on what other people are thinking or feeling. But we might also be more sensitive or more, easily offended, because, Chiron in Aries is bringing up all those personal wounds that we have, and it's bringing those up, wanting to discuss things like that. So, in its positive light, I could see Mercury and Libra bringing some harmony here, wanting to discuss these things maybe a little bit strategically or, cordially, but also like diplomatically, but also like it's this blend of diplomacy with transparency. Like, hey, I want to value my social relationships. I want peace and harmony, and I don't want to disrupt things too much. But I also have these like personal wounds or these personal kind of, more challenging feelings or thoughts that are equally valid, which I want to bring to the surface. You know what I mean? So that's where, that can be really good or really bad, just depending on how it goes. So like, that can be really good. It can be good to stand in your own power and say, hey, this is where I'm at. My past and my present hasn't been perfect. I've experienced these things, which I might not be comfortable with, or other people might not be comfortable with, but it's what happened, or it's reality, and I'm not going to hide it. But at the same time, how do I bring these things up, in a way that's appropriate or that doesn't offend others? I don't want to cause too much damage, but I also want to stand, in the place that I'm at. So it's this kind of sort of back and forth, you're combining opposite energies, Libra with Aries. Libra, which is very focused on others, combining with Aries, which is focused on the self. So it's this sort of balance there, this juggling act that just lasts for a day on September 8th. Also, I should mention Moon is just transiting Libra at this time. So if anything, Moon is kind of adding to this. Moon will kind of transit over Mercury, while Mercury is opposing Chiron, or, slightly after, a few hours after. So our focus is very much on Libra on September 8th. We are, sociable, diplomatic, thinking about other people, playful, but also strategic. Libra is an interesting sign. It is playful, and it can be sort of spontaneous or fun, but it's also, it can be serious too. It can be very strategic and manipulative even. So there's this sort of blend of energies that's going on with these, Libra placements with the Moon, Mercury, and Venus all transiting there. But generally speaking, especially with the Moon and Mercury there, both our thoughts and our feelings are sort of in Libra right now. So we're kind of focusing on our social relationships on Wednesday the 8th. Going forward to September 9th, this is sort of a continuation. Some of that awkwardness or that... all that, I'm not against it, but all that kind of drama of our personal wounds and bringing all this stuff up or not, or all this like overabundance of empathy and this sensitivity, all this stuff that comes with Chiron, that all that stuff is already going to kind of dissipate on the 9th, because Mercury is already 2 degrees past that aspect. Mercury is like, okay, cool, we experienced that. We delved right into that on Wednesday. By Thursday the 9th, we're kind of done with that. We're over that. Let's move on. Let's go through the rest of Libra here. But again, there's a lot of stuff happening. We're going to go back over this later, though. So yes, we are done with this for now. We'll touch up on this later, though, with Chiron in the future once Mercury retrogrades. So very much going forward, very much trailblazing ahead, but also, foreshadowing. We're not done here yet. We're going to come back. Moon, though, is transiting Libra still. And let me see what else. Really, there's not much else to say. Venus is approaching the last few degrees of Libra already. Venus is, traveling pretty quickly as well. In addition to Mercury, Venus is about as far away from the sun as it ever gets, almost. Venus can get 2 signs away, but it's approaching as far as it can get. Let me just make sure I've covered everything. One thing that I'm going to mention, which ties into what I'm about to say, is that there's these certain times of year where planets, the inner planets, can be all sort of in domicile or all sort of in detriment simultaneously. So we just experienced that time that I sort of talked a lot about, where the sun was in Leo, Mercury was in Virgo, Venus was in Libra. It was so perfect. All that stuff was just, everything was just kind of as it would be expected to be. It was simple. But all that changes just a little bit later, once you get these kind of fall energies. In general, summer and even late summer, Virgo to some extent, is more simple to understand. The energies that we experience there are more simple to understand. Especially in the northern latitudes, I think we look to summer like summer is this prized possession that we value and understand easily and we expect. And then somehow fall is this, like, don't get me wrong, I love fall. It's one of my favorite seasons, but fall it's part of what makes it so great is that there's something like disturbing about it. There's this death there. Things are sort of odd or awkward or different, or that's what makes it so interesting, is because things seem kind of different, or there's something engaging to the senses there because everything isn't as we would like expect it to be or feel most comfortable with it being, if that makes sense. So we do get a lot of detrimented energies once, later the sun will be in Libra in fall, Venus is about to enter Scorpio. All these planets kind of get more detrimented and we feel more out of place, but we're also more able to understand maybe weird or complex ideas. So that's just one theme I wanted to mention that is very relevant in Virgo season as we're transitioning from summer to fall. And the main reason why I was bringing that up is because here on September 10th, we have the moon entering Scorpio, as well as Venus entering Scorpio as well. So both Venus and the moon are in detriment / fall in Scorpio. So Venus is in detriment in Scorpio because it's in domicile in Taurus, right? So Venus is at home way over here. So Venus is as far away from her home as she can possibly be. So she's estranged, or she's exiled in Scorpio. She's a foreigner. She doesn't know the customs. She's confused. The moon is as well. The moon is exalted in Taurus. The moon is at fall in Scorpio. So the moon is also sort of estranged. So this can be kind of a shock, especially with both of these entering these positions on the same day, within hours of each other. So September 10th on Friday, it can be disconcerting, or it can be pleasurable as well. It depends on your own personal placements. But as a whole, since these videos are considering us all as a whole, yeah, this could be a little bit shocking, especially where Venus and the moon were just in Libra, where the Venus was in domicile and the moon is very much at peace in Libra as well. There's a big, sudden shift when both of these move into Scorpio, because Scorpio is a very different energy than Libra. Moon in Scorpio, we don't feel at ease. But even that, there's pros and cons to. So for instance, not feeling emotionally at ease or emotionally comfortable, it would influence us to be more active, or to take steps to prepare, or it would provoke us to be more ambitious, because we're not as satisfied with the status quo. We're not feeling all comfortable and cozy right now. We feel like we need to make some changes. We need to get out there and do something. So even this kind of detrimented, weird, challenging energy is not bad. There's pros and cons to every energy. Same with Venus there as well. Venus in Scorpio. So yeah, again, it is disconcerting. We feel a little bit at odds. We feel kind of maybe more awkward or more insecure, more in a survival mentality. But again, that provokes us to make change, to do better, to make changes. And again, on the flip side of it, when things are in domicile, it is comfortable, but you're not making any changes. You're not really doing any hard work, because things are comfortable. So why would you? So there's not much change or growth there. So that there's pros and cons to every energy. There's no exception. So with these kind of detriment fall, they're similar energies, but detriment / fall, Moon and Venus on the 10th. I think it could be kind of like a cold splash of water in your face, like some ice water, like it's uncomfortable and like jarring, but at the same time it wakes you up, and it puts you in that survival mentality where you feel more. And really that's a great analogy for Scorpio, because it is cold, but it also is invigorating and makes you feel alive. It's fiery yet cold at the same time. So it can kind of wake us up, and it can wake up some of those deeper feelings, because even though the Moon and Venus are much more comfortable in Libra, it's more balanced there. Libra isn't a very deep feeling sign. It's really not. Libra can be very intellectual, and it can understand a great deal of things, and it can even intellectualize emotions to some extent, but it just doesn't compare to having Venus and the Moon in Scorpio. There's such a depth and range of emotion, and the intelligence that comes from emotion there, that there's something to learn there as well. Also, Venus does represent finances as well as love and beauty and aesthetics and such. So Venus representing finances going into Scorpio, that can represent maybe more difficult times financially, generally speaking. But it can also represent times where you're investing more, because Scorpio does oppose Taurus. Taurus is finances, and Scorpio opposes that. But it doesn't mean that Scorpio is just about bad finances or no finances. Scorpio is very much about investments. Scorpio rules rare earth minerals, and stocks, and dividends, and interest, and our debts. What money is owed to us, what money do we owe others. All that is very much Scorpio. So Venus entering Scorpio might have us thinking more about not only the money we have, but what do we owe? What are we owed? How can we invest what we have, or how can we grow, what we don't yet have? It can be more challenging financially, but again, that challenge can promote further growth if you respond to it. It's sort of a take charge of energy. You can't just kind of experience this energy and go, oh cool, Venus is in Scorpio, so I'll just kind of kick back because my money will just grow on its own. That's not how it works at all. But if you're smart and you're active and you're listening and working and taking responsibility, then you can absolutely take advantage of this combination, or this transit, I guess you could say. So anyway, I rambled on about that probably too much, but yeah, anyway, Venus is entering Scorpio on the 10th. So again, I guess just to sum it up, it is detrimented. It's more challenging. We can feel insecure in our finances or our relationships, but there can also be, this can yield growth in those areas if we are active and take advantage of this energy as well. And there can be pleasure as well because of those deep emotions and those, Scorpio just feels so much. It's so intuitive, and there's value in those feelings and emotions, not only intellectually, but also in terms of enjoyment, of pleasure. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's what we're experiencing for the next several weeks with Venus and Scorpio. Okay, let's go forward to September 11th. I mean, we have Mercury making a quincunx with Uranus. I really don't cover quincunxes though. If you want to know about these minor aspects, I can tell you, but I've been following these things and I just don't feel them super literally. If you have planets at 14 degrees Taurus or Libra, you'll probably experience this quincunx. But I mean, the vast majority of us don't have planets exactly there. So I'm going to move on. So going forward to Saturday, September 11th. Again, there's no aspects, just like pretty much the rest of this week. But Moon is continuing its transit through Scorpio. Let's see what else here. And the Moon is approaching the North Node, which isn't a super big deal. I mean, there's no other planets really matching up with it. I mean, I wouldn't read too much into that. Let's see what else is going on here. That's pretty much it. I mean, so I can do kind of a recap here. So again, Venus and the Moon are in Scorpio. That's still a new kind of fresh change on the 11th on Saturday, especially because we're entering the weekend. So any of you who have, the weekend off where you're not working, this is kind of the first weekend in a while where, Venus and the Moon are suddenly in Scorpio now. That's a big change from before. So things can be maybe a little bit more intense or raw or emotional. And again, that can be disconcerting, it can be uncomfortable or awkward, but it can also be fun if you embrace it, especially if you're open to like weird or if you're more open to being out of your comfort zone, then you'll experience detrimented energies or fall energies more easily, and you'll get more out of them. It's just about being outside of your comfort zone. So for the weekend, I would say, yeah, I mean, really, it's a great weekend. It's just, I mean, I think I pretty much summed it up. It's just with Venus and the Moon and Scorpio, it's kind of being outside of your comfort zone, especially because, we don't really have a whole lot of other planets in domicile. The Sun is still transiting Virgo. And really, it's kind of a yin, focusing on these kind of short-term transits, and these inner planets. It's more of a yin dominant chart right now, just focusing on this sector here, because Sun and Mars are in Virgo, Venus and Moon are in Scorpio. Mercury is the only inner planet that's in a yang sign, and it's in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, which is more of a yin energy. I like to describe Libra as the most yin of the yang signs. It's the most yin of the air or fire signs. It's the most like introverted or receptive, in other words, of the air and fire signs. So really we're kind of more, this is more of like a resting period. I wouldn't say it's a super crazy weekend unless these things line up in your chart in a particular way. But generally speaking, I think we're more focused on the future. With Virgo and Scorpio are always preparing for the near or sometimes long-term future. They're always kind of gathering and preparing. That's why their minds never stop. They're both in a survival mode because they know fall is coming, and on some kind of level, on some kind of instinctive level, they know, okay, this abundance that was brought on by summer is ending. There are cold and desolate times in the very near future. We need to prepare. We need to organize. And so of course most of us aren't as tied into the natural world anymore, but we still experience these energies, and we still experience that need to prepare or organize, and we can capitalize off of these, if you will. Even Libra is sort of a time of abundance. It's the time of the harvest, traditionally, supposedly, according to some astrologers. But even Libra as well is, that's why it's yin-like for a yang sign, because it's the beginning of fall. It's the beginning of the end. It is beginning something, but it's beginning an end. Everything's really ending. Fall is, really an ending. It's not, if you're the first sign of fall, Libra, what you're initiating is really an end, if that makes sense. So all these inner planets are, there are many new things happening with Mercury in pre-shadow. But we're really not starting any major things right now. There's not a lot of fire in the chart, and we're not at the beginning of spring, or maybe the beginning of summer to some extent. This isn't a time for beginning things. This is a time for preparation, if that makes sense. Let's go forward to Sunday, September 12th. Again, there's no aspects, but the moon does enter Sagittarius early, in the early hours of September 12th. And it conjoins the the south node in Sagittarius. So maybe kind of bring some light or bring some attention to those difficult situations, especially now with COVID starting up. Maybe there's more energy, more focus on these troubles with travel, universities, religious institutions. These are not having a good time right now. There's trouble there, sort of, with the south node transiting Sagittarius. So the moon just going over the south node kind of just picks up on that. It puts the focus there for the moment on Sunday the 12th. Going forward to Monday, September 13th. So we actually do have a first quarter moon. Yes, first quarter moon on Sunday the 13th, which is pictured here pretty well. So the moon is at 21 degrees Sagittarius, and the sun is at 21 degrees Virgo. And the first quarter moon in particular is very volatile. It's very restless and active. It provokes us to make change, to be active. The downside is it can make you stressed. It can give you anxiety. But the plus side is it can be a great time for being productive, or just for doing something. You have to get out there and do something. Be productive, especially with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Sagittarius. You're going to want to be productive on that day, on Monday. So I really think this is kind of beautiful for a Monday rather than a Sunday, because, Monday I think would be suitable for this. You want to kind of start things, generally speaking, depending on your schedule. But generally speaking, for people starting their week on Monday, you do want to be kind of restless to some extent. You want to be active and get back into things, get into the rhythm. Get out there, do something, be productive. So, so this has its pros and cons, but it's a good time, generally speaking, for being productive. Again, especially with the moon in that fiery, energetic sign of Sagittarius, and sun in the industrious and productive and pragmatic, Virgo. It's a good time for getting things accomplished. Also, at the same time, we have sun opposing Neptune. So I suppose that is sort of a planetary aspect, if you count the sun as a planet. So it's a sort of T-square. You have this first quarter square, or first quarter moon, between the moon at 21 degrees and Virgo sun 21 degrees. But then there's this T-square with Neptune over at 21 degrees Pisces. And this is the last planet. First we've had Mercury, then Mars, and then now finally the sun pass over this position where each one of these makes first an opposition with Neptune at 21 degrees Pisces, and then secondly a trine with Pluto at 24 degrees Capricorn. So the sun is the last one in the pack, last one in this group here to make those two aspects. First, the opposition with Neptune, and it will do this opposition, coincidentally at the same time that the moon will have this first quarter square. So this could kind of add to the intensity and the energeticness, the high energy of this combination. It can make us not only active and restless and even irritable to some extent, but again, you won't be irritable or anxious as long as you're feeling like you're getting something accomplished. That's what the key is here. But then Neptune kind of brings in some kind of mysticism or confusion into the mix as well. And then now we're combining three mutable energies, which gets really interesting because there's already so much complexity and dynamism within each mutable sign on its own. So once you start stacking up 2-3 different mutable signs, there's it just especially also with Mercury in pre-shadow, Monday may just feel like it's kind of just a crazy day. There's just so much going on. There's so much frenetic energy. Google it. That's a great word to describe this. There's so much kind of just scattered random energy. It's almost like there's like static in the air. Okay, so pros and cons, to like kind of simplify it. Cons is easier for me to think of. Cons would be there's too much to keep track of. There's so much changing. There's so many variables. You can't possibly keep track of it all. And this will be especially hard if you have a lot of fixed signs in your chart, because or Cancer or Capricorn, because you want that consistency and that stability. And with everything changing and all these different variables, it can fluster everyone, but especially those fixed signs and Cancer and Capricorn. It can be, especially anxious. So, try to be a little bit open to change or open to new or different things, and that will help a lot with this, brief transit here on Monday. Those are kind of the challenges, but then the benefits of it would be, there is change. Could be a good time for not quite integration because there's just too much stuff happening to integrate, but it can be a good time for, basically, we're just throwing everything up in the air. We're throwing the chips in the air and we're letting them fall where they may. So right now, all the dust is in the air. Nothing has settled yet. So that can be good for, it makes me think of the Wheel of Fortune, or the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, because we're just kind of mixing it up. Let's just throw everything in a blender and just change it up. And again, that can be terrifying for some of these energies that want that consistency, but it can also be very exciting and invigorating for those of us that want a change, or that want some kind of dynamism, or we want life to be a little bit spicy here. You know what I mean? So yeah, that can be good for adding some complexity and some change to the normal pace of things. And again, I think even with the Neptune in there, with Neptune's kind of making it more confusing, and Neptune's a really hard energy to deal with, I'm not gonna lie to you, but even with that kind of mixing in here, I still think it's a good energy for a Monday, just because you got that Sun and Virgo, which wants to be productive, making that kind of friendly clash with the Moon and Sagittarius, wanting us to be kind of gregarious and outgoing and warm. So yeah, I still stand by that. I think it's generally good. Just get out there, get some work done, or do something. It would just be a terrible day if you're just sitting at home alone, not doing anything. It just looks miserable for that. You're not gonna relax. You gotta get out, do something. It doesn't even really matter what you're doing. Just get out there and do something on Monday the 13th. And that's pretty much what I have to say for this week. So I hope you enjoyed that. As always, please, I already told you I'm desperate for like any kind of, any kind of suggestion, anything you want to know, whether it's a personal reading or just general information about astrology. Please let me know. You can leave a comment or email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of your day.